the views and opinions expressed here are those of the individual speaking and may not be representative of KONIG American. At times, language may be considered vulgar. Listener discretion is suggested.
You are now listening to the KONIG Behind the Wheel podcast.
What's going on? I'm Scott from KONIG. With me is Jared.
What's going on?
Welcome back. Happy Wednesday, and it's nice to have you with you. If you are just coming in from the live that we did over on Instagram and Facebook, which we do every Wednesday at 2 p.m., welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Quick rundown.
Yeah, we could do a rundown.
Right? We are in a new location.
Yeah, it's not glamorous yet, but we're working on it. And these headphones that I'm using today are really throwing me for a loop. So, yeah, I think I'm going to have to play like a jockey here.
I'll join you with that.
Anyhow, make sure you tune into our YouTube channel. If you haven't already done this whole subscribe thing, do it now. We have some giveaways coming up. In addition to that, we drop a new piece of content every Friday. And I don't know, we dropped something last Friday. That was fun. And hopefully, I think we're doing Hype is Right again, another episode.
This Friday.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, this Friday on electric cars.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's get our guest in here. With us today is Chris from Flyryde. Flyryde, and we'll let Chris tell you what he does. But what's interesting is I think the best place to start is with the relationship. So Chris actually submitted a sponsorship proposal to us on an episode where we had basically said, hey, look, we're going to critique sponsorship proposals live. And Chris turned one in, probably one of the better ones than we've seen. And we called it out and we linked up with him, for him to do his thing. Chris does a lot of stuff with the programming of LEDs and lighting components for vehicles. And it's been interesting because his channel has a lot of informative information for those that maybe have never customized their own lights or, gone that direction. So without further ado, Chris, what's happening, man?
What's up, my man? I'm happy to be here. This is a cool, fun day.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to kind of rap with us about some stuff today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to do it. Answer questions, talk about whatever, but yeah, it's been a pleasure getting to know you guys.
Yeah, so I think what I like about your channel is your channel really focuses on a lot of information for the DIYer that maybe hasn't gotten involved in modifying their headlamps yet, or maybe looking for that first place to start, or even some of the more complicated builds that you do with LEDs and lamps and programming, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, like I'm live streaming this, at least my side of it, to TikTok right now, and I'm getting questions in there. People asking about, like, how do I reseal a set of taillights?
Right.
Or a lot of times people just have a bunch of kind of like misconceptions, or there's just so many weird little tricks of the trade, little nuances that are how to open one type of light is so different than how to open a different type of light, or tail lights, or things, other electrical on the car. And in general, like everybody in the automotive industry is like freaked out about wiring. So putting out how-tos out there definitely spurs a lot of questions and people that just want to know more.
Well, and I'll piggyback real quick and take it one step further.
This is, by the way, this is not only Jared. His nickname around here is Mr. Retrofit.
Nice.
He likes retrofit headlights.
Oh, that happened. Okay, I didn't even know that. Cool. Yeah, so no, I was just kind of going to piggyback off that and say that, a lot of times in the automotive industry, specifically in the aftermarket world, people kind of like to hold their cards.
Oh yeah, it's so backwards, bro.
And like your channel is kind of doing the opposite, which I think is really cool.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I honestly see that the automotive industry is about to change massively. And it's because for so many years, that's how people won. Like, I figured out how to do this little thing. Only I know how to do it. I can't tell anybody. And I'm going to run a whole business based off that secret. But now
until
it's
somebody else figures it out.
Yeah, man. And that's the thing. That's my, like, that's what I want everybody to be encouraged to know is that if you know how to do something, the best thing that you could do with it is help other people with it. Teach that out there, because if you don't, they're going to figure it out themselves, and then you don't get any pats on the back. You don't get any credit. You don't get to be a voice or a source of authority on the subject. But if you're the one that literally showed them how to do it, how pumped are they going to be if you guys ever connect? It's like it's the exact flip of most people in the automotive industry. So I think online education is just about to launch like a rocket, and I'm happy to ride that wave.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that I've spent some time looking through your channel because I wanted to really get to like the piece that people pull away from this. We find education to be a really important piece, right? So we go as far to put a lot of wheel and car informative information on our YouTube channel, which you do as well. But what's interesting is, you know, you really take it back for how long you've been doing it. So I've watched some interesting videos that you've put up where you talk about, like, especially things like the angel eyes, right? Where you were making your own, you know, 15 years ago, and now look what's available in the market. So you're showing that as technology changes, kind of so are you. Yeah, I can see him.
Right?
He's digging for him.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But-
man, I keep these things. It's like a souvenir to remember how I started, and
Yeah.
I have a really cool story about starting too that I'll dive into in a bit. But yeah, that's the OG right there from
Right.
2003.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I think what's cool is, you know, knowing, like what you said before, how technology is going to continuously evolve. Like headlamps used to be super simple, and now it's more than a bulb. Some of them are coming with integrated processor chips and a lot of electronics that are as the assembly. They're not serviced separately, not a ballast on the back of a headlamp. They're integrated into the lamp itself. So you can't just go and throw them in the oven.
Right. Yeah, it's a different ball game now. I mean, if you look at the Model X, right, the Tesla, the thing has a show mode. Like, here's a little remote control. There's some GTR lights, and now they're dancing and they're doing cool stuff, right?
Awesome.
The Tesla does that though, and you didn't have to spend thousands of dollars for some dude in a workshop to make those. The fact that that's not a functional part of the car, it's just a cool thing to have. It just kind of puts it out there that like people want this kind of stuff, whether or not like, oh, well, you can't have that. That's illegal. It's like, well, it might be illegal to drive the Model X down the road, just doors open and lights flashing and doing all that stuff, sure. But people still love it. Like, that's a sales feature. That helps Tesla move product. So I think, you know, every time you see a cool new thing that hits the street, it absolutely lends well to people who can customize that stuff. Because what's coming out now on the, you know, on whether it's a Camry or it's an Audi or something like that, you'll see these sequential taillights. Well, we've been making those things for 10 years. So when I see that on the street, that doesn't tell me, oh no, someone's going to take my little piece of the pie. That's like the whole world just found out this is a thing, that it
You're
exists.
shifting the
And now they're going to
industry.
look for it. And who are they going to find when they look for it? When I've been putting out content for 10 years, or other guys that are out there have been specialized in a particular type of car for a long time, putting out content. Like, that's how you get found. Like, bring it on. Like, technology, cool. Maybe you can't stick those things in the oven because they have, you know, like the LED matrix stuff where it's like turning off the high beam with like intelligence because it sees oncoming traffic or whatever. Like, whatever that is, fine. But all it does is get more people intrigued, and they want to dive in and find out more about it.
So I want to ask you some technical stuff, because I think that that's some of the coolest pieces. But you had mentioned about having a story about how you got started, and I feel like I want to hear about that before we jump into the technical pieces, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so what I love about your guys' channel was how much just value is upfront. No ask, no like, hey, pay me or buy my wheel, and then I'll tell you this little tip.
Right.
And that resonated with me because back in the day, prior to YouTube, prior to like all the easy to access information, we all had forums. The old guys know I'm 36, right? I feel like I'm getting better looking and smarter. I don't feel old, but somebody who's 19 is like, oh, that, you know, those are some old guys. We had to use forums. So back when you'd have to stick like a floppy disk in a little digital camera, shoot a picture, and then stick it into your old PC and upload it. It was hard to share pictures. We didn't have phones that could control the world, you know? And I had a project that I was doing. I wanted to put a cold air intake on my car, and then come to find out, oh, well, my little 97 Hyundai has a big clunky automatic transmission right where the filter is supposed to sit. So the first thing I did was look on the forums and see, hey, guys are changing these things to 5 speeds. So turns out it's just a drop-in thing. I started this crazy project, started tearing into the car, never worked on a car before. And the guys on the forum saw that I was doing this and were like, you're crazy, kid. Like, that's ridiculous that you're taking this on as your first project. We're going to come help you so you don't screw this whole thing up and get stuck with a car in 8 million pieces that you can't put back together. So these dudes just showed up, drove out from LA, and the beach, just different areas. They showed up. They were like, listen, if you grab that half shaft like this and you pull on it, it's just going to separate from the boot, and you're going to have, you know, grease everywhere. It's going to be terrible. Stick the screwdriver in like this. Do this. Like, they just showed me the DIY, but in person. And it was the coolest thing, and there was no ask from them. So by the time I had spent maybe 3 months on that, the car was down. I made this little ring because the car was sitting there for 3 months, and I put this in the headlight, and then I realized later I could make it a little bit better and kind of have like a fancier version of the same thing. And I had them in the car, and then I had this 5-speed. I dropped it in, everything worked, shifter linkages. I had everything dialed, and I didn't even know how to drive a stick yet. So it was this crazy thing of like, you can accomplish anything if you have somebody show you the way how to do it. And so I feel like that's my origin story, and now I teach everything that I can to kind of pass that torch.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I learned to drive stick by buying a manual car and just jumping
Same.
into it.
Same.
I had a
Yeah.
friend that tried to teach me, but you know, I mean,
My buddy did the same thing. We were driving uphill, and he's like, all right, stop. Just get out, get in the driver's seat. And I started rolling backwards in this car that I did not know how to drive. So it was just trial by fire. It was in his little, his Dodge Neon or something like that. And so he showed me how to drive a stick after he spent 3 months wrenching away and just learning stuff in the cold and looking at schematic books all the time. And we did it. We pulled it off. And I had this awesome little car, and I was just in love with everything automotive at that point because it was amazing. Like, you could just get this knowledge and do stuff.
yeah, I remember the first time that I like successfully felt like I knew how to drive stick, and then came to my first hill. The amount of terror that you feel in the bottom of your stomach when that car starts to pull up behind you and you still aren't quite sure if you're going to be able to get your car out of the hole.
and you don't want to cheat with the e-brake.
No, I would have cheated any way I could
Oh, okay.
have
All right.
at that time. But anyhow, yeah, no, I grasp what you're saying. We put out a lot of content very similarly that we just want to put it out there. Like, if you find another wheel brand that you're cool with and you want to do, that's fine. The knowledge we put out for primarily the basic part of what we do is all just wheel knowledge or car knowledge in general. And I think that if you're a car person, I think if you're a car guy, car girl, car they, you know, PC. But like, I think if you're in any one of these situations, a car enthusiast just want to help and be around other car enthusiasts. I think I have more of a problem with the people that say they're car enthusiasts but have no desire to add or help or put anything back into the space, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Because-
Totally. I've had that same exact feeling, and especially, I hate to say it, but if you run a small business like I do, there's only certain ways you can make more money. And if it's a service-based business and your hands are always what makes the money, there's only so much work you can do, meaning you'll run out of hours long before you run out of
Work.
customers.
Yeah.
And then you have to increase your rates. And then you start raising to a higher caliber of customer. And it can get to the point where you're working for people that you don't want to be working for just because they're the only ones with the money to keep it going. And unfortunately for me, I've got to see a lot of times you'll have people that will be like, well, I have a 2000 horsepower motor and I need to have this now. I should be the number one priority in your whole life. And it's like, bro, what is all this for? Like, is it just so that you can have another thing on your already amazing car? Like where's this whole thing going? And it becomes a showboat thing, and it's not, you don't feel like you're serving people. You feel like you're kind of like in service of a boss. So it can get kind of tricky if you're doing custom work, because you really have to start saying no a lot. And people don't like to be told no. I mean, that's just human nature. People want what they want. So
Yeah.
I love seeing people that want to help other guys and getting behind that. That's why influencers like the YouTube guys, when they're putting out helpful content, I love helping those dudes, because now I know if I do something for him, I just did it for his whole audience. And that to me is infinitely more valuable, even if I don't make any money, than getting a $10,000 headlight job.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that being able to put, kind of good information out into the space, I always felt with information, especially with cars, right? You could help people learn, you could put the information right out there. There are always going to be people that, no matter how much information is available at their fingertips, don't really want to do it themselves anyway. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can be a car enthusiast and not want to actually physically do the work. That doesn't make you less of a car person, but it does make you different, right? And that's why there's so many successful shops in existence that are out there.
Yep.
The ones that do a good job and, take care of their customers and, supply good service and do things quickly and try to keep a quality atmosphere and a level of QC to what they turn out. I think those shops are there for people that maybe don't really want to physically get involved,
But really like cars.
but love cars. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool way to connect. I mean, a lot of the racers are amazing. I don't know if anybody that's watching this. If you don't, go check out Rad Dan. Rad Dan
Yeah.
Burkett
Yeah,
drives
he's
the
cool.
Supra in Formula D. He's so funny, because when you get there and you talk to him and you hang out with him, he's the same guy through and through. And
Yeah.
that's something that's like massive for me. Like, authenticity is the top of the mountain. I don't care if you are a big deal or you're not a big deal. If you're you in all places, and it's not like a fake extra character that then when I see you in person, you're not like, I guarantee if I hang out with Scott for the day, he's that Scott that I'm looking at on the screen.
Unfortunately.
He's the same dude.
Everybody's like, well, yeah, I mean, he is, but
sometimes you
that
don't see
doesn't-
that, man. Sometimes
Yeah.
people, you see him and you're just like, whoa, like this guy he's just like a deflated, angry version of a fictional character that I thought I was going to meet today.
Well, you're still describing me.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, but-
there is also that component. I don't know how true this is, but I've heard that like there's like psychological studies on like certain YouTube voices and pitches and how to present to people, and like it's just not how you would normally talk.
Yeah, you do need to
person.
add extra energy. I know that because I teach such boring stuff. It's terrible. People are like, man, you make it look easy. I'm like, brother, you watched a 10-second TikTok video of something that took me 6 hours. Like, yeah, it looked easy because you
Yeah.
didn't watch the other 6 hours of me struggling and cussing and cutting myself. And, like, of course, but even just with YouTube, like, you've got a personality and you have to up it a little bit. You got to go to 110% of your personality or 120%. What I have a problem with is where it's like, that's just not even you. Like, you're just not even that person. You see that person in real life, you're like, wow, that's crazy. I do understand that just in all things, show business and all that, like, you have to be extra because the camera sucks the life out of you, and it does get kind of hard to show exactly who you are. So I love people that do storytelling and dive into their, more than just the logo, just overall. That's why I love Dan. Seeing him, he's got that voice where it's like he's such a very specific dude that he teaches crazy stuff. He knows that 2JZ like nobody else. He shares that content and he shows what it takes behind the scenes to be a pro driver, and like that's super dope. I love learning more about all the pro drivers. So always a big fan of them.
Yeah, I think anybody that can peel back the curtain. And Dan's just a cool dude. I haven't really met Dan, but I have a lot of mutual friends that Dan has, and he's just a car guy, you know. And I think that really
Yeah.
should car maniac, maybe
Yeah.
more descript, but
Yeah.
you know, he's a car guy and he's a great driver, and he builds some really, really, really rad cars. Not to pun on his name, but you know what I mean.
Hey, it is. It's branding well done. I got a
Yeah.
funny story about his shop. I was down there one time messing around with doing a sponsorship deal where we were supposed to put underglow on the car, which is funny because if you watched the last day of Formula D, everybody had their underglow on. So I was like, finally, there's underglow on these cars, right? But I was there, and as I'm sitting there underneath the Supra looking at stuff, thinking about how am I going to attach all this stuff, we've got like multiple pro drivers. So I'm sitting there just trying to figure out how the heck I'm going to work on Dan's car and do all this like mil spec wiring. Like everything has to be perfect on those cars. You can't mess around with it or whatever. But then he's got his buddies that come in, and I know I was sitting there, and I don't know why I feel so dumb right now not knowing, but the Forsberg was there.
Chris
And
Forsberg, yeah.
yeah, and his name's the same as mine, and I forgot his first name right now. In any case, I'm under this car, and I see Chris is there, and he's got a crazy project going on. I got to walk up and ask him about it and put him on one of my YouTube videos. And as I'm under this car working on it and trying to figure stuff out, I just feel like the only dork there, because they all do all this manly like engine swap, crazy sequential transmission, blah blah blah, and I'm like, I could turn on this little blue light, and I already feel like a geek. And I see Forsberg in the kitchen, and he's looking straight out at me, and it's hot as hell outside, and we're in there working with no AC or anything. And I'm under the Supra, and he looks up and he's like, "Hey man, you want a drink? You want a water?" And I'm standing there. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, what a nice guy. Yeah. Hook me up." So he walks out of the kitchen with a couple waters. I think I'm about to crack open a cold bottle of water with Forsberg, and he just walks right past me to the guy that was behind me. That he was actually asking if he wanted water, and it wasn't me. And I was like, "Yep, this is what it feels like to be a little simp, I guess." I was just like, here's these awesome guys, and I just feel like a goofball playing with LEDs.
Yeah, Chris is a good guy.
Yeah,
I would say all those guys. It's funny. It's like I think I've met more of those guys that have been really cool, super cool, than I have met anybody that really is stuffy.
I've actually worked with him before, and shameless plug for the Baja yet again. I had him in the Baja, which I think was a pretty big feat. I have a bagged Subaru Baja, so
Nice.
I try to talk about it on every episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody I've asked and talked to or anything, sometimes it's a little off-putting when you roll up and you stick a camera at them, so I try not to ever lead with that. But just even the fact that we get to see what Chris is up to, and he's doing YouTube, and so many of the people are doing that now, it's like, I do think that that's what we're going to see moving forward, is that you're not going to follow somebody because of the wins that they get. You're going to follow somebody because you know who they are, and you're watching what they're doing, and you're like, I sit there and cheer, like I'm talking to Taylor Hole while he's doing races, and just cheering him on. We're talking about doing some Cadillac headlights and stuff like that, and I love that, to DM somebody and then to go watch them perform and just do amazing things. I mean,
Yeah.
watching Brutski was amazing too. I was texting that guy like, go. It was crazy. It's
Yeah.
good times.
Yeah, Taylor's a good guy. We like working with him, and he's a good family guy. So it's fun to work with people that are kind of like-minded, right? It makes everything feel a little bit better. So tell me, when you get started, so how did we get started programming lights? Like, what made you start with the whole be able to, because it's one thing to take like different LED components or customize headlamps, right? You pull them apart, you change colors, you add some of these other pieces, but what got you into the actual like programming to do some of the complicated functions?
Yeah, so I had been making the little rings for a long time, and I used to buy the LEDs from AutoZone for like $35 for like a couple 3-packs, and then I would use a bunch of the LEDs, and it was just costing me a ton of money. I was selling them for $5 more than all the materials cost me. It wasn't going anywhere. As soon as I turned that into buying 100 LEDs at a time from China on eBay, and then they just show up with a bunch of resistors, I had to learn soldering and wiring. And then after I did that, my costs went from being like $35 on a $40 sale to like $2 for a $100 sale, because people are like, dude, you need to raise your prices. Like, we want to buy these cool rings that we see you making, like keep it going. So I did that. And that's kind of like the year before Flyryde even started. I was just doing halos. As time went on, they started to have new LEDs come out. So now they can change colors. So now instead of soldering 2 wires to a little LED, you got 4 wires. And then it became like, well, how do you control those 3 wires? How do you turn them on and turn it from red to blue to green and blend the colors? So I was making all this stuff by hand. And then fast forward another couple of years, it was like, I'm making all this stuff. And then all of a sudden China comes out with like these crazy bright LED rings that have all the LEDs already on a circuit board. That blows everything I ever made out of the water in terms of brightness. But yet again, there's no really cool way to control it. And then you progress a little bit further, and now you've got guys that are doing microcontrollers, and they're figuring out how to do a bunch of little LEDs. And I was in Vegas one day, and I had a phone call come in. It was a guy that said he worked at Hyundai. In those days, I was doing a bunch of Genesis coupe headlights, putting those little glowing rings in, the little circuit board rings. And so I think maybe this guy works at a dealership. I don't know if he's on the forums or whatever. And he says that he's actually the head of the design center in Irvine, and he wants me to come into Hyundai corporate and talk about doing something for SEMA. So that was in 2011, and they brought me on a project for what they called the Hurricane SC, right? And so I had this project that I was trying to work on, and at the same token, there was a guy that was building microcontrollers, and I was like, I think this is it. This is how I can get this crazy technology out in front of everybody at SEMA, in the Hyundai booth, all of that. And I hired a guy who went by the name Stupid Pig on the forums, and he was a brilliant, brilliant engineer, just crazy, way smarter than me guy, right? He started making me parts, and I got him in the Hyundai booth, and everything was all set up and dialed, and I was ready for everybody to be blown away, but they didn't have power. So it just sat there, and it didn't turn on. It didn't do anything. And so I had Stupid Pig make me a bunch of cooler controllers, and I did the branding myself, and I made YouTube videos, and I started showing that. And then as time went on, I'd always want cool new features, or I'd run into a problem, and I'd be like, bro, can we do it like this? Can we do it like that? And he'd have to do everything, and then I'd wait. And so the iterations were so slow back and forth. So long story long, a company came out called Ghost Lighting. And it was one guy that works at NASA, another guy that was a professional in the IT industry. And they're just smart dudes, and they're best friends. And so I got a hold of one of their sequencers, and same kind of thing. It was like they'd send it to you. It had what it had, and you could ask them for cool things. And if it was like, oh, I only have 19 LEDs, I don't need the 20 channels. Like, how do we change it specific to what I need? So over time, their product started developing and getting better and better based on our feedback. And then finally, after years, I mean, by this point, it's probably 2016, 17, they're at like their 5th version of the product. They basically said, here's everything. And this is what I tell everybody that they should do. Put it in the hands of the community. That's what Ghost did. They said, here's our tool. Here's how you program it. Here's our little designer. You have access to everything. It's now all open source. Like, you can sit and fiddle with it all day long. You don't have to wait on us. They put a server up that you can run their program through, and it compiles and makes a little file. It's super nerdy, but it's easy and it's fun. And so I took that and I kind of built up a community of guys, and I said, if you want to learn how to do this stuff, it's free for me to do it. It's free for you to do it. I'm not going to charge you to teach you how, because I think that as a community, it's way cooler to just contribute all towards one effort. And so I started something called Sequential Squad. And it's basically a bunch of guys that just compare notes. They help each other out. Guys are making actually all of the animations on that set of lights right there. I didn't even build. My buddy Tim did the animation for this. If I get my big head out of the way, it does really cool things. And it takes a lot of effort to write all these little lines of code. But his 12-year-old daughter was doing it. Like, it's the kids get involved. Like, it's fun. It's this It's this like silly little thing that we're doing, but it's sharing files. Tim doesn't have access to GTRs, but he made the file and sent it to me. I ran it past my wealthy customer. He said, I like that animation. I like that animation. I like all of these different things. And then we curated a custom package that was basically a collection of animations made by guys around the world. That's so cool. And it was free. Didn't cost me, didn't cost them. Like, that's the coolest kind of way to collab and get the best effort. So just like the whole topic of information is like, it's way better having that out in front of all those people, as opposed to just being like, Hyundai hired me in 2011. I know how to hire Stupid Pig to make me one thing, and I'm just gonna hold on to that secret. Like, nah, this is so much better. It's amazing to me. So hope that I answered that long.
Yeah, no, so it's interesting. Like, I think that one of the more informative pieces, I think, and that's probably why you have it there, but on your YouTube channel, the cover page there is a video where you spend about maybe just shy of 20 minutes educating people on the steps that you don't do.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting for somebody that's never maybe taken that leap to work on their own headlights, or the person that has done some of the headlight stuff before, but maybe learned in a way that's probably causing issues for their project afterward. You really walk through it. And I guess what I mean is you walk through examples like, guys, I know that you see people using 2 screwdrivers to pry the lens up, but don't do that because it's not going to seal afterward. Like, you got to put it back.
Right.
And I think that video, so in the essence of trying to educate a little bit, what do you think for the DIYer that maybe purchases a programmer that does all this stuff, that kind of gets how to do the animations and develop this stuff and put LEDs and could do the mechanical parts? What are the big pieces that you want to do or not do when you're building a custom setup?
Well, it's a really good question, because there's so many. It's so easy to do something that is not the right way, or it's the slow, terrible way, right? There's very few things that are like the totally right way to do it that are going to give you the least amount of problems. The problem is, because the information's so like democratized, it's everywhere. Every kid with a YouTube channel that's building up his XYZ car has a video of him opening up the headlights. And the video that he watched to learn how to do it is how he did it. And it's that stupid kid's game of telephone. And by the time you're at the end, you got somebody holding a blowtorch trying to open up their headlight, just destroying everything. And it's like, no, dude, like it's not actually difficult. You just can't take bad advice, but how are you going to cut through that? So I don't mind stepping on toes. I don't mind being like, a lot of times in my comments on the YouTube channel, people will try to answer other people's questions that they're asking me. And of course, I'm not like every second of the day answering those questions, but they give bad advice on my channel on a video that's probably showing the answer to the question that was asked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if they asked that in the first 2 minutes of the video and the answer came at minute 7. But in any case, like, if you're doing the work, it's just important to find a source on the subject as opposed to like a jack of all trades. So I always tell everybody, if you go to a shop and they offer engine swaps and they wrap cars and they do lighting, they don't do lighting. There's only one shop that does lighting. It's a lighting shop. So, I mean, you can have them do it, but all that means is that there's a guy on staff that gets paid by the hour to do whatever he can to get that car in and out of that shop as fast as possible. And he's not going to do it the right way, because that's not, if he screws up, it doesn't cost him money. It doesn't hurt him to fail. So if you find a guy who like loses his ass every time he makes a mistake, he's going to stop making that mistake because he's tired of losing money. He's tired of the backlash and all that stuff. So if you find somebody who's truly like been through the trenches, blood, sweat, and tears, that whole thing, and that's for everything automotive, I feel like why are you going to listen to somebody that tells you how to build an engine that, like, if the engine blows up, it doesn't hurt them? Like, that's a bad position to be in, right? So I just say, when it comes to like starting with the project, first thing that you need to figure out is like, what's your budget? Because if you see something like everybody sees a light like that, that's a $7,000 setup. Like, I don't think that makes sense. I don't think most people, for any reason, at any time in their life, should spend $7,000 on headlights, just headlights. That's it. Unless you have a Lamborghini, and that's the factory cost of replacement headlights.
So Chris, I have to ask because
Yeah.
I want to get into it. So tell me what makes that kind of a setup $7,000? Is it labor for the most part? Is it programming? Is it actual components, or is it a
Yeah.
combination? Like, how does that come to fruition?
So I think a huge part of it too is kind of like the value. So I sell like an end result. I don't sell like, oh, it costs me this many dollars per hour. Like,
Right.
at the end of the day, I solve a problem for a guy. A rich guy sees something he wants. He says, how much? How fast can I get it? I answer those two things. And if he's good with it, then he forks over a bunch of money.
Right.
So it's a little different for the guy that wants to sell it to the college student with the Honda Civic.
Yep.
Dude, I honestly just say, college kid with Honda Civic, learn how to do this stuff yourself, because it doesn't make sense for somebody else to work their face off and put in 40 hours of work so that you can have a cool set of lights on your car that's in the college parking lot, and like the guy made like 89 cents an hour. Like, that doesn't make sense. Why would that even be a thing?
Yeah.
Versus like, you don't have any money, but you got a ton of time. Well, guess what? Time is what it takes to build those things and to fail and to fix it. It's not very expensive. So I put out a video recently that showed $30 worth of parts that are going on a WRX taillight. It's a brand new WRX STI on the channel Throttle, and it's a sweepstakes car. It's going to be a giveaway. So I built like a whole how-to of chopping open the light, how to take everything apart, how to assemble, actually how to modify the factory circuit board, put the $30 component in there, do all the wiring, and then put it back. So it's plug and play on the car. It does sequential. It looks awesome. And it costs $30 for each light to do that. But if you paid me to do that, I would charge you $2,000, because like that amount of my time, and it is super easy to mess up, and it can get expensive. Maybe not on a WRX, but on a GTR, you mess up a headlight, it's $1,500 a pop.
Yeah.
So, why are those $7,000? Well, 3,000 of it goes straight to Nissan before I get a penny.
Right.
And the other part goes to something that cost me tens of thousands of dollars to develop, which is a drop-in circuit board that we had to go through different versions, the R&D time, the waiting, the getting my ass handed to me from angry customers. Like, it was hard. It was so hard, and it solves the problem perfectly now. And there's a premium attached to that, as well as the time and the experience that's backed behind it. Because it's not just like you had your local guy do it. You can buy the parts from me. You could buy the training from me for your guy that's local to you. But you can't buy me and my time unless you're willing to pay for the end result, which is what I charge for. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. For some people, it's just about parts.
No, it makes a lot of sense. First off, I think it follows that proverb when people say, that old story of the plumber walks into a house and he says, okay, what's the problem? They're like, oh, this doesn't work. And then he's like, okay. And he looks at it for a few seconds and takes one wrench, does this thing, empties it out, puts it back together and says, oh, it's going to be $250. And they're like, but you were here for 5 minutes. He's like, yeah, I was here for 5 minutes, but I've had 36 years of experience that led me to be able to know how to spend my 5 minutes.
You paid for the 36 years, not for the 5 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting, but I also think it's interesting what you said. So you said out of that, so do you find yourself when you're doing the custom projects that you're purchasing brand new cores to sell them, replacement, or are they sending you lights kind of thing?
It's kind of like a VIP type situation. So because I only do GTRs, if it's a client thing, it's GTRs only. And I'm phasing that out because I really do want to just focus on the education aspect of it, which for me is scalable. My time is not. I've been doing this for 18 years. So I'm like, I don't want to be 55 years old talking to a 23-year-old with a rich dad that bought him a GTR and like bending over backwards to get it there so he can go to a car show. I just don't care about that. Like I've had enough experience with that. But what I will say is that if I put out the information about how to do it, and I have the parts that show how to do it, and all of that stuff comes together in a way that people can learn and they could do it themselves. And if they really want the how-to, the step-by-step, all that, and I have an online course that teaches them how to do it, I would rather have all of my time and effort go into that than just slaving away. Because if you finish a project that's a really high-profile project, this is a great little piece for anybody that ever wants to build lights. Don't take on big, crazy projects because they don't, number one, they don't scale. Your time doesn't. But number two, it's way harder to take a job that costs $10,000. You have one guy who now owns your soul, he feels, because he's just forked out a bunch of money. He's not going to run around and tell all his friends about you. He's going to push you to the limit, stress you out, and tell you, oh, I'm going to take my money back. And, you know, it's this scary thing. Versus if you have 10 dudes that have like normal dude cars and you happen to specialize in that car and you do 10 of them, and there's one in this color and one in that color, and there's all these different versions of your work that's out there, you're going to actually be able to finish 10 jobs faster than one monster and make 10 guys happy out there. And they all have 10, you know, each one has an Instagram account, each one has friends, and you spread this way all at once versus you finish one project that was a monster, and at best, all you can hope for is to get another one after. You just always start over, and it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't spread. You don't get exceptional at one particular thing. You're on a hamster wheel and you're just running. So I try to help people make money. It's a weird time right now. I think the side hustle is so important, whether or not that means that, like, I don't think this is a job people should have. I think it's a side hustle that can make them happy, pay for car parts, pay for vacations, pay for whatever it is that they're needing help with, even to the effect of, like, you don't even have to have as good of a job. You might have a job that you like more that pays less because you have a fun side hustle too, as opposed to like you work your face off 60 hours a week doing something you hate just so that you can have the extra money. I'd rather see somebody happy with a side hustle that gives them some freedom to do, even if that means freedom to leave their job and go find something that they enjoy doing better. So it's kind of an overarching business thing for me than it is like, I want to work on cars. Like, I really don't want to wrench on people's cars for money. I would rather go hang out with my buddies in San Diego, like I'll be there tomorrow, and film and laugh and have a great time. And then I have this project that people can check out, get inspired by, and know that they can do it themselves. And my students tell me that. They're like, dude, I feel so empowered that I got to learn how to do something. And I just did this crazy thing and people are already asking me how to do it. And like, if I can do it for them. And it's like, it's a slippery slope. You don't want to take on a bunch of work just because you did one thing, but it is cool watching them light up like I did when I put that little stupid Hyundai together and I was like, I did it. I could do whatever. You know, the information is crazy. Like, you could pretty much take what you learn and put it to use in lots of ways. But I just tell people, like, give yourself some freedom and stay happy. You know, don't make yourself miserable because you're trying to work on a $10,000 set of headlights.
Dude, I feel like that's a great point to wrap up on. You know what I mean? Like, the happiness and kind of being able to put things out in the space is certainly really important, you know? So I love that, man. And I love that you came on and kind of gave us a glimpse into your world and kind of gone through this. And I think there's a lot of information that is on your channel that people can go and check out, and you tell them what they need and how to do it, and don't make this mistake. And you're giving those, you know, going back to that proverb, right? You're giving the 36 years of experience, quote unquote,
Right
here, and you're saying, hey, look, here's the 36 years of experience. Don't do this stuff because I've done this before and it doesn't work. Like,
yeah, and it hurts.
Yeah.
Don't be me, man. I failed more than everybody.
Yeah.
I love there's another saying where it's like, the master has failed more times than the student has ever attempted it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you haven't even tried as many times as I've completely screwed up. If there's a guy who's made the mistake like at everything, it's me. I've ruined everything. But I got a lot of tenacity, I guess. So I do love teaching what I've learned. And I just appreciate you guys for letting me come on and share a little bit about it.
No, it's awesome. And it's cool to see people like you putting out a lot of content. I think that the content that's informative makes it fun to watch. You're not always going to have everybody that's going to want to watch it because not everybody wants to watch a how-to. Not everybody wants to watch what's a fact. Some people just want to be entertained. But I think that your content is so relevant and good for people that really want to be empowered and do something themselves that maybe is outside their comfort zone. So they get to kind of use you to get comfortable with it first, you know?
It's giving them a vote of confidence.
Yeah, right.
I love that. Yeah.
Great.
There's something I heard in a talk the other day that was for people that are all these social media influencers. They all hate that word influencer. They cringe when they hear it. And I heard a great speech. I've been spending a ton of time in this business app, this invite only thing called Clubhouse. I'm in there ridiculous amounts
Grant
of time.
Cardone?
Well, he's one of the people that probably has brought more people on. I'm not necessarily a fan of that style of business, but
Yeah.
somebody was talking about impact, and it hit me huge. I'm like, number one, edutainment is huge because it's got to be entertaining a little bit. You know, there's education, but there's entertainment intertwined, and
Yeah.
edutainment is huge right now. But one of the things I picked up in Clubhouse was the subject of impact. And I was like, I don't want to be a social media influencer. I don't want to like influence you to go buy a shirt. I want to impact you. I want to like hit you like a meteorite and it changed something and you go do something as a result of the impact that I've made. So I've come to kind of form this idea of being a social media impactor. And I think that's what I would just want to continue doing.
Yeah. That's
I like it.
cool. Yeah, I love it. Chris, man, thanks for your time. I appreciate
guys.
it. It's been cool kind of getting to rap with you for a little bit. And like I said, make sure you check out Chris's channel. He's got so much information on there that you can use at home and you could help your other friends with. You could watch it and then show 10 of your other buddies how to do the same thing. So, I don't know, like spread the impact, right?
Yeah,
There you
man.
go.
Do
There
it.
you go.
Thank you guys.
Awesome, Chris.
Have a good
We'll
one,
catch up
man.
with you later.
All right, my man.
Take care. So, listen, I think it was cool having Chris join us. I think it's really interesting watching people that come from different experiences and different scenes, right?
Mhm.
Like, I would say LED lighting probably the relevancy that it holds to wheels may not be super related, but when you think about they're both accessory products that offer an appearance change to a vehicle, I think that that's, a really big piece. So I don't know, it's one of those things. I think that, finding people that are willing to put some informative information out there is great. But I don't know. Is Chris still with us? I don't know. Oh, he is. He's still here. All right, good. Because we just put up a question, and I'm like, oh crap. All right,
Muted
Chris.
myself because I'm on TikTok live too right now.
Oh, geez, Chris. So, don't tell Chris how much. Let's see. Any chasing light strips or other LEDs you recommend for custom trunk setups?
Yeah, there's, the cool thing is there's a lot of inexpensive stuff on Amazon. So what I would look into would be LED addressable lights. It's a lot different than the typical stuff that I do, but it changes all the colors. It does chasing and all of that. So there's some really cool, there's a guy on TikTok that goes by NTX Glow, like North Texas Glow. Zach is amazing. Zach Cook. So he's got a YouTube channel, but he's got a huge TikTok that's 200,000 people watching it. Connect with somebody like that, and that's where addressable RGB is like the craziest show thing. I don't really do it. I messed with the project recently that had it in there, and people are like, "Oh, I thought you said you didn't do that stuff." But the reality is a lot of people are using it, and it's amazing. So look into addressable RGB.
Did we have another question for him? Because I saw another question came up, but I didn't really understand what it meant.
I think it's just trolling or something,
Oh, okay.
if I had to guess.
Anyhow,
Did we have anything on
Chris,
YouTube?
are there any other? Here's a couple questions I have. Are there any LED? When we start talking about LEDs, let's not even talk about just taillights or whatever. Are there any other like LEDs? Do they have a different quality level between different bulbs? Is there, if you're looking for something that maybe even not a bulb. If you're looking for a project with an LED, are there certain specific requirements that you want to look at for brightness and for reliability?
Yeah, definitely. There's a milliamp rating on a lot of different types of LEDs, and it depends what you're trying to do. When I had mentioned the addressable RGB, there are different chips that get too hot. And generally people are always, especially like the computer dork types, are going to tell you like, oh, well, you could get this and just buy a roll of these things for $10. The problem is if you put those lights into your headlights, those LEDs, they already run hot. And then you're sticking them in a headlight
It gets
that
hotter.
not only does it run 12 volts and it has to be dropped down to 5, but it's cooking in the headlight all the time. And it's like there's no airflow to it. So a lot of people, it's again misinformation. But yeah, milliamp ratings. There's a lot of stuff. It's so nuanced. It depends on the application.
Does that? I was just going to follow up. Does that screw up potentially the seal of the headlight also?
That's a big thing. People ask about it all the time. So there's basically 3 types of headlights. One, a lot of the JDM stuff, it's got a sealant called rubber butyl. That's what you stick in the oven and it gets soft. It's like old chewed bubble gum when it's cold, and then when it gets hot, it becomes pliable and stringy. That's the easiest, best stuff ever. So if you have a set of headlights that has that, cakework. You can actually make money selling stuff like that. Then there's the next tier up, which is called Permaseal. And Permaseal has either like impossible to open or you just cook it for a long time. So like a Dodge Charger, you pop that thing in the oven for a long time, 20 minutes or so, and then it softens up enough that you can rip the lens off, and then you have to remove the sealant, and then you have to fill it with that rubber butyl. And then you've got BMWs that are just sealed by Satan himself, and you are not going to get inside that light, so you got to cut it. And then you can seal it using like a Permatex and plastic welding and different tools like that. But some guys will just sit there and just butcher their hands and stab themselves up and get all cut and angry and spend hours and hours just trying to open up a set of lights, and you can really damage them. So it just depends on what type of car you have. Even some of the new imports have permasealed lights. So
Yeah.
it's all dependent on the car.
Yeah, and sealing is so critical because you will have that condensation haze, you'll burn out bulbs, you'll especially for the more complicated lights, you'll start burning out components just from the fact that you're developing moisture in that seal, that unit.
A big thing people mess up is they'll paint a part and then it dries to the touch, and then they stick it in the light, and then they seal it back up, and it's outgassing and it stains the inside of the lens. That's where you get that like rainbowish, hazy, kind of dull look on the inside. And that's unfortunate, because if you just let the thing gas out for 24 hours or overnight or whatever, you're just not going to have all those fumes that are just so fresh, because it's the top layer of paint's dry, but the bottom's still kind of curing or whatever. So there's that. But when you seal a light, yeah, you should. That's what Scott was talking about earlier, not grabbing 2 screwdrivers and just ripping open the light. If you do it by hand, if it's possible, then you don't damage that seal, that channel that has the glue in it. And so if you do open up a set of lights like that, you just add a little bit more of that stuff in there. You can go to, I'll drop a couple different names of suppliers. The retrofitsource.com, huge, awesome company. They're the biggest in the industry. Diode Dynamics, those 2 different brands, they have their own rubber butyl sealant that you can buy for like $20 for a roll. That'll do at least a couple sets of lights. And I mean, there's so many other ones. Lightworks.net is another great company that works with both of those. They're not a manufacturer, they're a master distributor. So those 3 guys, like, hit them up. That's who I would say.
And be careful with that stuff. That stuff, once you touch it and put it other places, that stuff's not the most pleasant to play with.
Yeah, I have a machine that I bought from the guy that owns the Retrofit Source years ago, and it's so scary because it heats up in this little heat chamber, a whole big bunch of that rubber butyl. So it's like liquid hot rubber, and then I have to step on a pedal and it dispenses it. It's the same machine that they use when they make the headlights in the factory. And I bought that years ago just to be able to do faster work and not have to work with like a roll of cold butyl, but a hot liquid version of it. And if it touches your skin, instant blister, and then you try to get it off with your other hand, and now your other hand's getting messed up, and it's so bad. And even if you're just working with it from a roll, and you're not like wetting your fingers as you go, it can actually grab onto your fingerprints so hard it's going to take skin with it when you
Yeah.
pull your finger off. So
Well,
it's not fun.
my experience with butyl actually is like with when I used to do a lot of cars where we used to build like, cars meant for like drag racing and different things. Like we used to put a Lexan in with a type of, butyl out of a caulking gun. And I'm telling you right now, you had to tape everything off, be super specific where you wanted it to be, not overload the gun because once
man.
that stuff started getting everywhere, disgusting. Couldn't get
man.
it off.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not a fun job half the time. It's super messy. And I hate to say, but it is not the best thing, like health wise, to do. There's so many bad fumes and ways to get hurt and cut yourself. Like I use a blade called an ultrasonic cutter, and it's basically like a razor blade that's just vibrating so fast that it cuts through plastic like butter. It also cuts through your finger like butter. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, these are the perks of the job.
Yeah, man. And that's why someone's like, I'm going to let you work on my expensive car. It's like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
What
Well,
an honor.
It goes for that risk reward thing, right? Like it's like you can't make the big bucks without taking on the big risk.
Yeah.
Or
That's
as
what you
Jared
pay for.
DeAnda would say,
100%.
no risk it, no biscuit.
Yeah, man. All those cuts, all that blood, all those years of cussing, just hating life as you learn, that's attached to the price tag.
It smells terrific. All right, Chris, we're really getting out of here this time. Thanks very much. Let's see. For more info on the podcast, get over to konigwheels.com/podcast. We do this every Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube, KONIG Wheels USA. Make sure you subscribe, click the notification bell. Hell, a thumbs up really works too. We're trying to do some more things on this. More content will be out. In fact, this Friday, we'll be dropping another piece of content as we try to do every Friday. And
There we go.
that's it. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.